the essence of the text in brief capsules. Now, the entire project is meant to give you selections from the text so that you understand what the text is trying to tell us. And for the first short video, I would like to ask this question: what exactly is the original sin of Robinson Crusoe, given the fact that Crusoe keeps on harping about his original sin and its consequences? Now, the term original sin actually sort of ended Robinson Crusoe, of course, comes when when Crusoe is settled in Brazil and is planning the voyage which will ultimately lead to the shipwreck and to his marooning on the island. He has already thrown away the words of his father and ventured into travel, has been shipwrecked once, caught by pirates, and then, by a stroke of luck, has arrived in Brazil, where he is now the owner of a plantation. And then he's throwing away everything. And that is what he talks about his original sin. He talks about himself as a memento to those who are touched with the general plague of mankind, of not being satisfied with the station wherein God and nature had placed them. And it is here that not following the words of his father, not remaining in the station of life destined for him, is what he calls his original sin. So that's the definition of the original sin according to Robinson Crusoe. What was the advice of the father? As Crusoe planned or announced his intention of going out to the big bad world, his father observes that the calamities of life were shared among the upper and lower part of mankind, but that the middle station, or the middling kind of life, was the one which had the fewest disasters and was not so much exposed. So the father advises that the middle station of life, the middle class of life, as it were, is the most preferable state. And that once Crusoe is born into it, sliding gently through the world and sensibly tasting the sweets of living without the bitter, feeling that they are happy and learning it by everyday's experience, to know it more sensibly. That is what his father's advice is: to remain in his station because he has is born into the middle station of life, and profiting from gradual experience rather than gamble his entire future on a sea voyage. Now, there are certain paradoxes here which you obviously can understand. The first is to understand the biblical parallels in the way that Crusoe is the modern Enlightenment Adam who violates the word of the Father, that is God. And therefore, there is the fall of Crusoe. Within the structure of the spiritual autobiography, of course, within which, Defoe is writing, the original sin then leads to shipwreck, suffering, intense agony. And then from the suffering comes the understanding of God and final salvation. But given the Christian parallel, then the original sin is a recipe for disaster. But look at it in this way, that Crusoe's original sin is never to be satisfied with his station and perennially moving forward in search of experience. He, like Ulysses, must drink life to the very least. And this wanderlust, this desire to see new land and territorize it, is the founding impulse of colonialism and capitalism. In the way that the sea becomes the British common, and then newer markets and newer colonies for the state can be found and developed. Defoe the colonizer and Defoe the Christian, therefore, come into a kind of a dialectic. A tension operates here, which is resolved in a certain way in which Crusoe realizes within the island the presence of God and seeks to advocate the Christian ethic. Now, do we locate here the traveler as colonizer and politician, very often a pirate, and the traveler as the missionary coming together in this colonial project of travel, of bringing together Christianity and secular demand for power and economics? This, of course, is at the center of what Robinson Crusoe is all about. A novel about empire building. As Crusoe says, this is his country, he is the king and the sole monarch of the territory. And he will then subdue Friday and will build a small England on this island paradise. At the same time, you need to also see how, without this original sin, there can be no narrative. You see, when we talk about Vidashagar, for example, we talk about the two children, Rakhal and Gopal. Rakhal is very good and stays within his station, and Gopal, Rakhal, who is the archetypal naughty boy who moves out, versus Gopal, who is the good boy and stays within his station. If Crusoe stays within his station, then there's no narrative at all. Therefore, for the novelist too, the original sin is the impulse from which the novel can progress. So how serious is the original sin? In fact, the original sin seems to be not a sin at all. It is the impulse from which the novel originates. It is the impulse from which colonialism originates. And since Defoe is celebrating this, he will ultimately continually talk about the original sin, but the original sin will be the moment through which his narrative will progress. Well, that's that then. Thank you for watching, and watch out for more short videos on my YouTube channel. If you feel that you want to know more about this, well, I have an entire series of lectures on Robinson Crusoe, which you can take a look at. And if you've liked this short video, do leave a comment so that I know exactly where I'm failing you or where this is for your benefit. Thank you again, and do have a good time reading Robinson Crusoe. That's it then for the time being. I hope that we'll see more of you in the near future. Thank you very much.